Welcome to This Explainer. When you really stop and think about it, you've spent decades doing all the right things. You showed up day after day. You sacrificed, you delayed gratification through decades that frankly asked absolutely everything of you and gave back, well, let's be honest, quite slowly. And now you're finally here. You are in retirement, or maybe you're getting very, very close to the finish line, and you're holding the first real, unadulterated financial freedom of your entire adult life. It's an incredible feeling. But somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this little voice. It's quiet at first, but it whispers, I deserve this. I earned this. It is finally my turn. And let me be absolutely crystal clear right out of the gate. That voice, it's not wrong. Not even a little bit. Those are deeply human feelings, and they are completely 100% valid. You did earn it. But here is the massive catch, the thing that literally nobody tells you at the exact moment when that little voice gets the loudest. Some of the purchases that feel the absolute most like well-deserved rewards in retirement are the exact same ones that quietly, almost invisibly, become the heaviest financial burdens of your remaining years. And look, it's not because you were foolish. It's not because you were reckless. It is because the hidden costs of certain massive purchases are systematically never explained to you at the moment of sale. It's like a trap door. By the time the full picture becomes clear, the money is already gone and you're stuck. So today, we are going to unpack 5 very specific purchases that retirees across America buy with incredible excitement and then regret with incredible consistency. So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll look at the permission gap. Second, hidden retirement math. Third, the 5 purchases to avoid. Fourth, the adult-child trap. And finally, number 5, frameworks for true freedom. Let's dive right in. Section 1, the permission gap, and why smart retirees make bad purchases. Okay, so psychologists actually have a name for this phase. They call it the permission gap. It's typically those first 2, maybe 5 years of early retirement when you feel not just allowed, but practically obligated to spend your money on those long-deferred dreams. We're talking about the boat, the massive RV, the picturesque vacation home. Think about it. For 40 solid years, your spending was governed by these invisible, heavy constraints. You had the mortgage, the kids' tuition, the sheer demands of your career. Every single purchase you made was evaluated against a backdrop of strict obligation. But then retirement arrives, and suddenly, the primary voice driving your decision-making isn't obligation anymore. It's desire. The problem? Desire-driven purchases at age 65 operate on fundamentally radically different math than they do at age 45. At 45, you have future income to bail you out if you make a mistake. At 65, sitting on a fixed income, that recovery window is incredibly narrow. Actually, scratch that, it's almost non-existent. The Employee Benefit Research Institute found an astonishing statistic that we really need to pause on. Retirees who make large discretionary purchases in the first 3 years of retirement are 31% more likely to face a financial shortfall by age 80. Just let that sink in for a second. 31%. That is not some random statistical fluke. That is the direct, brutal mathematical cost of the permission gap operating without a filter, usually fueled by a shifting sense of identity or, honestly, just temporary early retirement boredom. Moving on to Section 2, hidden retirement math and the true cost of things. Now, most people, when they walk onto a lot or into an open house, they think about big purchases purely in terms of the sticker price, the purchase price. But financial advisors, the ones who actually specialize in keeping retirees solvent, they think about these things entirely differently. They look at total ownership cost plus opportunity cost. It's like an iceberg, right? The sticker price is just what's visible above the water. So the absolute crucial point here is that you have to calculate 3 separate numbers before you buy anything big. First, you need the true annual ownership cost. We're talking insurance, routine maintenance, storage fees, taxes, and the silent wealth killer, depreciation. Second, you have to project your actual annual usage, and I mean measured honestly, in actual days on the calendar, not in your aspirational, best-case scenario dream. And third, the opportunity cost. What would that massive chunk of capital actually generate for you if it were just sitting there invested conservatively? When you combine those 3 elements, the results are consistently sobering. To put this into a real-world perspective, let's look at some compound growth data from Vanguard. They show that a $25,000 purchase made at age 62 carries a hidden opportunity cost of roughly $30,000 in foregone growth by the time you hit age 75. And that's just assuming a very conservative 6.5% return. So you have to realize that $25,000 purchase didn't just cost you $25,000. It effectively stripped $55,000 of future wealth right out of your portfolio.
Furthermore, the reality of living on a fixed income acts as a massive amplifier for every single financial mistake. Think about it. When you're working, if you get hit with an unexpected $3,000 repair bill, it's annoying, it's painful, sure. But in retirement, withdrawing an extra $3,000 isn't just about the $3,000. It might suddenly trigger income taxes, or it reduces your baseline compoundable balance forever, or it could even push a larger portion of your Social Security into a taxable bracket. It's a domino effect. There is simply no margin for error anymore. All right, Section 3, 5 purchases to avoid. The regret list.
Purchase number 1 on the regret list is the RV, or the luxury motorhome. And wow, the dream here is incredibly powerful, isn't it? The open road, visiting all the national parks, the grandchildren piled in the back making memories. But here's the thing. The Recreation Vehicle Industry Association, they don't exactly advertise the reality at the same volume that they sell the dream. Statista data shows that a whopping 56% of RV owners over the age of 60 use their vehicle for less than 3 weeks per year. Less than 3 weeks. Meanwhile, Consumer Reports documents that the average annual maintenance for a Class A motorhome runs somewhere between $3,000 and $7,000, which, when you think about it, is a phenomenally expensive way to let a giant vehicle sit in your driveway collecting leaves. Let me tell you a story about a couple. We'll call them David and Carol. They retired with about $340,000 in savings. Not bad at all. They took a huge chunk of that and bought a gorgeous 38-foot motorhome for $112,000. Over the next 5 years, they watched as David's back issues made driving this land yacht incredibly painful. They went from planning 3 cross-country trips a year down to just 1 short trip. When they finally threw in the towel and sold it, the math was devastating. Between the loan payments, the $600 annual storage fee, the $3,000 in annual repairs, and the absolutely massive depreciation hit they took, their $112,000 motorhome had ultimately cost them $14,000 a year for just 42 total days of actual use over a 5-year period. If you do the math on that, it is an astonishing $2,470 per day of actual use. And honestly, the worst part wasn't even the money. They suffered terribly from what we call sunk cost acceleration. That's the awful nagging stress of forcing yourself to plan a trip you don't even want to take just to justify this massive pile of money sitting in your driveway. So let's look at the alternative, because you don't have to give up the dream entirely. This is what financial planners brilliantly call the rent-first protocol. Let's say you just rent an RV through one of those online platforms for your 3 weeks of travel every year. Over 5 years, that's going to cost you maybe $15,000 to $30,000 total. That's it. No maintenance bills, no agonizing over depreciation, no scrambling for winter storage. On the flip side, buying that Class A motorhome for the exact same 3 weeks of annual use can easily cost you north of $200,000 over that same 5-year period when you factor in total ownership and opportunity costs. The level of freedom and enjoyment in both scenarios is exactly identical. The devastating financial consequence? Totally avoidable. Okay, purchase number 2. The timeshare trap. Look, if there's literally one purchase on the planet that financial professionals, the FTC, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the AARP universally agree is an absolute disaster, it is this. The average timeshare in the US will set you back about $24,140 right off the bat. But it's not just the price. It's the deeply psychological sales funnel that traps smart people. You go on vacation, you get lured into a free breakfast, and suddenly you're sitting through a grueling 4-hour presentation mathematically designed to create artificial urgency, and eventually, you break. Take a woman we'll call Margaret. She spent $22,000 on a beautiful Florida timeshare. 5 years later, due to some unforeseen family conflicts, she couldn't even use her designated week anymore. But guess what? She was still locked into paying $1,400 in annual maintenance fees. And those fees, they mathematically rise about 4% every single year, regardless of whether you step foot on the property. When Margaret tried to sell it, she discovered a horrifying truth. The resale market is literally a graveyard. You can go on sites like Redweek right now and see thousands of timeshares listed for exactly $1, and nobody wants them. Out of desperation, she called one of those timeshare exit companies, and they wanted up to $15,000 just to legally break her contract, and they wouldn't even guarantee success. When you look across the purchase price, the inescapable ongoing costs, the zero resale value, and the sheer nightmare of trying to exit, timeshares are uniformly the absolute worst financial profile on this entire list, no question. Purchase number 3 is the vacation home, or the lake house. Now, this one is super tricky because the core dream is so grounded and beautiful. It's just a place to build family memories, right? But the National Association of Realtors documents that buyers consistently, almost without fail, underestimate second home operating costs by 34% in the first year alone. Maintaining a property from afar, paying property taxes, insurance, year-round utilities, property management, random repairs, that typically runs 1% to 2% of the property's total value every single year. So if you buy a nice $400,000 lake house, it can easily cost you $8,000 a year before you've even spent a single night sleeping in it. Consider Robert and Linda.
They bought a gorgeous Michigan lake house for $380,000. Sounded like a great idea. But by their third summer, their relaxing weekends were totally consumed by replacing a rotting dock, patching roof repairs, and dealing with a failed well pump. Robert found himself making 6-hour round trips in the dead of freezing February weather just to fix busted pipes. When they finally threw in the towel and sold it 7 years later, the operating costs, the mortgage interest, and the opportunity costs meant they had walked away with a net loss of $220,000. Oh, and here's a nasty little IRS rule that almost nobody knows about. If you personally use the property for more than 14 days a year, it's legally considered a personal residence. That means you can't even deduct your rental losses against your other income. It literally turns what was supposed to be pure relaxation into an exhausting, incredibly expensive second job. Moving to purchase number 4, high-cost home renovations with a poor return on investment. This one is dangerous because it feels exactly like responsible homeownership. You think, I'm investing in my primary asset, which is exactly why it's such a trap. Remodeling Magazine actually tracks this data closely, and their findings are incredibly humbling. On average, major home renovations only return about 50 to 60 cents for every single dollar you spend when it comes time to sell. Now look, in your 40s, a massive top-of-the-line kitchen renovation makes total sense because you are going to use that kitchen for the next 15 or 20 years. But in your late 60s, sinking huge cash into a home that you might actually be forced to leave in 5 years due to unforeseen health reasons, well, that is a wildly different calculation. Take James, who is actually a retired contractor himself. He spent $130,000 out of pocket on a stunning kitchen and master bath remodel. But just 18 months later, his wife's health took a turn, and it forced them to downsize to a single-story living situation. That $130,000 renovation, it only added $78,000 to the home's appraisal value, which means he effectively paid $52,000 for just 18 months of enjoying a nicer kitchen. Unless the renovation passes the specific aging-in-place test, and by that I mean things like installing grab bars, walk-in showers, or converting to main-floor living that genuinely allows you to stay in the home safely as you age, high-end, purely aesthetic renovations are a massive, massive financial drain.
Section 4. The Adult-Child Trap and Financial Rescues.
Now, we need to shift gears a bit because unlike an RV or a kitchen remodel, this purchase is made purely 100% out of love. And it's incredibly common. Did you know that parents over the age of 50 actually transfer more money to their adult children each year than they contribute to their own retirement accounts? It's true. Pew Research shows the average annual transfer is over $4,500. And honestly, for many families, we know it's far, far higher than that. But here is the devastating statistic. 53% of parents who provide this ongoing financial support report that it has directly compromised their own financial security. So we really have to pause and confront a heartbreaking reality here. If you deplete your hard-earned savings to financially rescue your adult child today, and then you arrive at age 78 without the resources to pay for your own health care or assisted living, who exactly bears the cost of your care? In the overwhelming majority of cases, your children do. By sacrificing your own security today, you ultimately become a massive financial and logistical burden tomorrow to the very same children you were trying to help. Whether it's co-signing their mortgages, providing continuous cash gifts, or draining your liquid assets to help them with a down payment, this dynamic silently escalates. You absolutely must have a boundaried, honest conversation with them. It is perfectly okay to say, I love you, I can offer X amount to help, but beyond that, I must protect my own security so that I absolutely do not become a burden to you in 20 years.
Finally, Section 5, Frameworks for True Freedom and Protecting Your Capital. So, after all of that, what do? How do we actually build a reliable, foolproof defense against these emotionally driven financial mistakes? Well, it's not about entering a state of endless analysis paralysis, and it's certainly not about completely depriving yourself of joy in retirement. It's about utilizing very specific, tested spending principles. And the absolute most reliable tool you can use for literally any purchase over $10,000 is called the 90-day rule. Here's how it works. You take a piece of paper and you write down the full purchase price. Then you write down your honest, researched estimate of the annual ownership cost. Finally, you write down the specific emotional reason why you want this thing. Then you fold it up, seal that piece of paper in an envelope, and put it in a drawer. You are not allowed to open it for exactly 90 days. If, after 3 months, you open that envelope and the desire is still burning incredibly strong, and the math still works out perfectly, then you go buy it with complete confidence. But so often, remarkably often, you'll find that the desire has softened significantly. The intense urgency you felt was just manufactured by a clever salesperson, or maybe just a fleeting bout of early retirement boredom. By filtering out that manufactured urgency, you just saved yourself a massive financial mistake, and it cost you absolutely nothing to do it. Now, alongside that 90-day rule, you really should run every single major financial decision through this 7-question filter. Let's walk through it. First, the 90-day check we literally just discussed. Second, what is the honest annual cost? And you must include hidden depreciation in that number. Third, and this is a big one, can I physically and logistically maintain this boat, this RV, or this massive property when I'm 75 and my body naturally changes? Fourth, does this purchase create real, breathable freedom in my life, or does it silently lock me into an ongoing stressful obligation? Fifth, what is my exit strategy? If my health fails tomorrow, can I sell this asset quickly without taking a catastrophic financial loss? Sixth, and please really think about this one, am I buying the item for what it actually is, or just for what it represents? Because if you just want to feel successful or you just want to feel adventurous, you really don't need to buy a 6-figure anchor to feel those feelings. And seventh, have I asked a totally disinterested advisor, someone who does not earn a single dime of commission off the sale, what they actually think about the math? You see, true retirement wealth is defined by liquid optionality. It's the ultimate ability to change your mind, to pivot your life plans, to relocate if you need to, rather than being hopelessly trapped by heavy anchored possessions. As we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with one final powerful thought. When researchers look at retirees who report the absolute highest levels of life satisfaction, they aren't the ones with the most complex, high-maintenance portfolios of adult toys and real estate. Not at all. They are the ones who intentionally simplify. They are the ones who just rent the beautiful lake house for 2 perfectly stress-free weeks a year and then hand the keys back. They rent the RV for a summer adventure without ever having to worry about paying for its winter storage. They keep their capital highly liquid and continuously growing. You have to remember, retirement is not the chapter of your life where you need to prove to the world that you succeeded. You already did that. You did that through 40 years of hard work and sacrifice. This chapter is about peace. It's about the profound joy of having enough and knowing it. True financial security is the invisible infrastructure of your daily freedom. So the next time you're sitting there, pen in hand, right before you sign that massive stack of paperwork, I want you to stop and ask yourself one simple question. Does this buy me possessions, or does this buy me peace? Thank you so much for walking through this explainer with me today. Take these frameworks, apply them to your own life, and ensure that your retirement story turns out to be exactly the one you deserve.